final speaker in the luxury session is quite a character, and I think he's got one of the best jobs in the world, Director of Design for Aston Martin. Marek Reichman has been involved in designing some of the most beautiful cars in the world, from the Rolls-Royce Phantom to the Aston Martin Rapide, the DBS, the new Vanquish, the new Vantage, the exceptional 177, the Zagato. I'm almost out of breath. And no doubt you'd have seen some of these cars in James Bond films. So on the 100th year anniversary of Aston Martin, it's with great pleasure that I'd like to invite Marek Reichman to share his thoughts on the enduring global appeal of the Aston Martin brand and its potential in faster-growing Asian markets. Marek.
Thank you very much, and fantastic presentation so far, and a lot of commonality actually in the luxury theme between what's been said so far about rarity and what is special about luxury, and the fact that we don't actually need it, we desire luxury. I've been design director for Aston Martin for about 9 years, so a long list of products that have come out of the studio. It's not just myself, if you like. I'm a conductor. I have an orchestra that works with me, which is the design team. You can't design a car on your own. I have to have an exceptional team, and if any one of those people is not playing the instrument correctly, then the car doesn't come out correctly. So it's very much about conducting an orchestra. And I'm going to talk about the art of design. But I'm going to start with a movie, because we're 100 years old this year. There's a little bit of an insight into the history of Aston Martin, why the products are the way they are, just visually first of all. We'll talk a little bit about India first of all. We have about 140 dealers around the world. And just to give you some idea of exclusivity, I'm going to talk about certain numbers over 100 years. In 100 years, around about 65,000 cars, and that's it within 100 years. That's about a month's production of the Ford Focus. So it's 100 years of exclusivity and rarity. So 140 dealers now, 2 dealers in India, in Mumbai and New Delhi. We do lots of events in India with government, with local industry in India, supporting certain supply bases and supply chains that we have in India as well. Mumbai is a cool city, and we're a cool brand. We have to have associations with cool centers because we are a global brand. We're British, and I'll use the analogy of Bond. He's an international spy, but he's very British. And we're an international company, but we're very British. But it's important that you understand markets, that as a designer as well, that you gain ideas and thoughts from all over the globe, and that makes the product desirable in itself. New Delhi, again, Formula One, modern architecture, colorful, bright, modern cities that are very, very, very inspirational. So our range, I'll quickly flick through this because we haven't got a lot of time, kind of gives you an idea of the diversity of what we do, but they're all sports cars. They're all grand touring sports cars. Recently got back from a launch from the V12 Vantage S and this Vanquish Volante down here. So our values, we've talked about power, beauty, and soul, and how do those values translate into the various marketplaces. And one of the reasons that they do is we have a DNA. I noticed in the Fabergé presentation it said Fabergé DNA. We have a DNA. We don't change the DNA for the market. We produce the product that we believe is right for Aston Martin. We don't typically do market research either. We believe in the product and we understand what Aston Martin is. I mean, I have a statement about market research for the luxury brand that is, ask me 100 times, and that's our market research. Power is obvious, but it's not just the power of the engine, it's the power of design, it's the power of the brand as well. It's the power of owning the product. When people then see you in the product, put their thumbs up and say, hey, great choice. It's about beauty. Beauty is universal, and I'll talk a little bit more later on about how we can define beauty and measure beauty through the golden section. But everyone sees beauty in a slightly different way. Soul is about the heritage, it's about the brand's character, it's about the people, it's about those 100 years. That's truly the soul of the brand. And a lot of people ask me again, is it constraining to have a DNA that is Aston Martin? No, it's wonderful as a designer because it means you have something to base your ideas on. You have a fabulous foundation to move on into the future. We're proud of the product, so the value at the end of all of those things is the guys and the girls who build the cars and place the badge on the end of the line on the car. Before the badge goes onto the cars have a code name. They're not called Aston Martins, PX7745, whatever it may be. The only time they're called Aston Martins is when they receive the badge in the factory. So there's a pride behind the people building the cars. We're a cool brand. And what does cool mean? What is cool? Well, there's a cool council, believe it or not, and that's the definition of how you become cool. We've won the Cool Awards, the coolest brand in the UK, I think 5 out of the last 6 years. We lost out to Apple once. They normally come second. Why are we cool? What is cool? Well, there are two governmental, if you like, employees on the screen. One of them is definitely cool, and the other you can make your own opinion up about. They both are wearing a suit, they both have a tie, they're both surrounded by either their enemies or their allies. One is certainly cool. So what's the difference? Is it the story? Is it the imagination? What makes something cool? We never follow the crowd. That's partly what makes us cool. We do our own thing, we do things individually, we do things that we feel are right for Aston Martin. We have great associations, and again, some of them have arrived by chance. The original movie, it wasn't a monetary deal, it was a conversation between the then director and the set director who said, we'd like to put your car into our movie, are you okay with it? Well, it seems like a good idea. And still to this day, there is no contract between ourselves and Eon. It's a friendship marriage, if you like. Things may change in the future, but the last movie was all about being friends and supplying cars for a movie. Luxury. What is luxury? I mean, how do we define it? So, specialized but not luxury. These are rare items, but are they luxurious items? Is rarity just luxury? Not really. Luxury is about knowledge and discernment as well. Both eggs, one of them you believe the story that it's organic, so you'll pay 3 times as much. You have no idea that this one isn't. They look exactly the same. One has a stamp on it. But I'm telling you this one was a chicken running around in a beautiful field, the other one wasn't. Okay, I'll pay more for that. It's the story that makes something luxurious as well. Creativity. How do we achieve that leadership, that creativity? Again, something that markets like India will desire in our product. Well, we're all emotional beings. We laugh, cry, we enjoy things, we are passionate about pursuits, whatever they may be. We want to play at football, watch football, we want to go motor racing. We all have those emotions. But function is also very, very important, and the emotion of function. This is a vacuum cleaner from circa about 1947, maybe a little bit later. Works perfectly well, plug it into the wall, sucks up dust, we clean the carpet. That's an emotional vacuum cleaner. One that has functionality, but it has an emotion attached to it as well. There's something slightly different about this vacuum cleaner. There's a story, again, behind the vacuum cleaner. There's innovation behind it. But it's very much heart over mind for luxury as well. It's about creating something which will create the desire, will create the demand. Castiglione lamp, again, it's a light bulb at the end of a beautifully polished stainless steel arm with a chrome polished bowl, if you like, beautifully pierced, sitting with a marble base. It could have been a wire hanging from the ceiling with a bulb in it. It's a reading lamp. But here it's about heart over mind. It's desiring the object. So how do we define beauty? Well, Da Vinci's done it. Lots of people have done it, talking about golden section, the golden proportion. we can't resist that golden proportion when we see it. Our eye naturally tends towards that beautiful object. I gave this talk about 3 years ago in Japan, about how our cars fit perfectly to golden section. And golden section, as you know, is a proportional relationship. It's a relationship about 1/3 to 2/3, a proportional relationship, if you like. So I gave the talk about what that is and what Da Vinci wrote about, all those things. A Japanese customer went home and measured his car and sent me these images and said, "You're right, it does. And there's the equation, and these are all the equations that you could then create through the car to find out that it fits within golden proportion." But it's about a confident posture as well, a confident stance, something which is, it looks capable, it looks sturdy, it looks as though it can do the job that's written on the tin that it's meant to do. So that's about proportion, it's about posture, and it's about what we would call the architecture of the car. But it's beyond that, it's about the fine detailing. Every single line on our cars works in harmony. You won't find a poor angle from an Aston Martin. You won't find two lines that don't have a consequence, that don't work together. We very much wear our label on the inside, though. We're not an overt brand. I like the trumpet, but I wouldn't like someone playing the trumpet right now. I like the trumpet when it's the right moment, and it's the same with our brand. When it's the right moment, don't shout about what the brand is. Handcrafted is very, very important. Our cars have 7 layers of paint. They're hand-painted, they're hand-polished. We spend so much time, again, numbers and figures. Our cars spend about 32 minutes in the paint shop. It takes about 4 weeks to build one of our cars. A Ford Focus spends 30 seconds in the paint shop and takes about 4 hours to build. So again, it's how much time you spend building something. This was interesting the first time that I presented a product, our 177, in India. So I talked very much about handcrafting. And of course, in India, everyone understands handcrafting. Handcrafting is part of the norm, so they instantly understood what I was talking about hand beating a panel, hand shaping, hand creating a panel. So a quick case study of how do we design, how do we do this, what do we do? Well, we have what we call our temple of design. This is where all the cars are created. Not many people get to go in here, obviously industry secrets and so on, and we work currently about 5 years into the future in terms of the product, the concept that we're developing in here. You have to design a car in natural light. You have to design a car in what we would call an infinite ceiling. It needs to appear as though it's outside when you're creating it and designing it. But you have to be very critical with the surface and the language that you're using. So we have these very severe lighting rigs that, as you can see, pick up every single detail and line on the car as we're creating and developing it. So those consequent lines look right. So we push the limits all the time. We push the boundaries of design, of car design, of what the brand stands for. It still starts with a sketch. The power of the pen is so important. 177 was a product that was only 77, hence the name 177, and we sold them for £1.2 million. We introduced them in 2009/10 at the point of the worst economic crisis the world has seen. They're all sold, they're all gone. They all have greater value than the last one now that was sold about a year ago. So again, they are gaining in value because they were rare, because they were a limited number. So we developed the sketches into what we call renderings to define the car, the shape, the form. Really, what's the feeling behind the product that we're creating? And you start to see them then as three-dimensional images. And these things exist in the designer's brains, in the head. This car doesn't exist at this point. It's coming out of the feelings, the inputs that you have as a designer from wherever you go, whatever you see, whichever culture you're involved with. It's very, very important for a designer to go out, to look, to see all of these things. We then use sculptors to generate the forms and the language from those sketches to really create the feel, the shape and the form of the car, that beauty, but always within that golden section that I'm talking about. We use something called Dynoc to turn that brown clay blob, which is that material there, gets covered in this material to make it look like a shiny body, so we can assess the light lines under those lights, so we can see the form and the shape of the car. And you see it here again, being covered in the material, and now you can see the lights projected onto the surface. And this is not quite right at this point. We use technology to transfer that information to our engineering team. So we use laser scanners to transfer that live data, because at the minute this is a one-off piece of sculpture, but we have to manufacture that. We have to find a way for the engineering guys to create the tool to create the surface for us. We do things that are impossible to do sometimes. This is an aluminium door panel on the 177 with a door mirror stalk pressed out of one piece of aluminium. It's actually hand chased and hand beaten, so there's no seam. We reduce lines. There you start to see the car in reality. Parallel to that, there is a chassis being created which gives the car its driving dynamic. That's what's actually creating, again, the soul of the car, the heart of the car, the beating heart of the car, working together with design. Finally, we start to trim and make the prototypes, and in 177's case, all of the cars were prototypes, effectively hand-built prototypes. Authenticity of materials is very, very important to us. If it looks like metal on the inside of the car, it is. Our leathers are chosen from the greatest hides, or the best hides, if you like, from Scotland, with cows that roam around in fields that don't have barbed wire. They're treated incredibly well, hence you get a very, very good high-quality leather hide. So it's real leathers, real carbon fiber, real aluminiums, real titaniums that you will find and touch in our cars. Quality and the precision feeling is important. I wouldn't suggest you do this to someone else's car, but if you ever get the chance, run your hands over an Aston Martin, because you won't find lots of very awkward intersections as you run your hand over the car. It's all about how things are integrated into the surface. And finally, the badge. With 177, we took some liberties and actually machined the flutes of our badge, if you like, to make them sparkle like a diamond as light ran across them. So each of those flutes is a slightly different angle, and when the light catches them, they really sparkle. Produce a factory to make the car, so they're all produced in what we would call our 177 lab. It is very much like a lab, and that is a normal working day, and you can eat your dinner off the floor. And at the end of it, we produced a car. We sold 77 of them for £1.2 million, and this is the car driving at 225 miles an hour, the proof of all the work that went into the car and the people that built it. So thank you very much, and if you have questions, thank you.